Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem appeared alongside federal agents in the Twin Cities today as authorities confirmed the arrest of a man identified as Tomas Espinapia. Officials say he is an illegal immigrant with a criminal history that includes a robbery conviction and an international warrant for murder and sexual assault in his home country of Ecuador. The arrest immediately became a flashpoint in an already volatile political and social climate. State leaders reacted with fury. Never before, they argued, had Minnesota witnessed federal intervention on this scale. Critics described the operation as the product of what they called a petty and vile administration, one that, in their words, showed little concern for the well-being of Minnesotans or the stability of their communities. January 28, 2026, 3 hours before dawn. Minneapolis is not merely cold, it is hostile, the kind of cold that cuts through fabric, bone, and resolve. A brutal Arctic front has locked the city inside a frozen cage, dragging temperatures down to a punishing 6 degrees Fahrenheit. Under the pale, flickering glow of streetlights near the Whipple Federal Building, the air is thick with freezing fog and something far more dangerous: anticipation, fear, anger. The scent of confrontation hangs heavy. Minnesota has become ground zero for what ICE officials describe as the largest immigration enforcement operation in the state's history. Roughly 2,000 federal agents have been deployed with a clear directive: arrest undocumented immigrants, with an emphasis on individuals accused or convicted of serious crimes. To Washington, it is enforcement. To many locals, it feels like occupation. Governor Tim Walz has not remained silent. His words cut sharply, reflecting a state leadership openly challenging the federal government's tactics. For weeks now, Minneapolis has existed as a city under tension. Aggressive federal operations by ICE and the Department of Homeland Security have turned ordinary neighborhoods into surveillance zones. The streets have become a stage where fear, resistance, and authority collide. Thousands of protesters gather in the biting wind, their breath visible like smoke rising from a battlefield. They press toward the federal complex, their anger focused on the reinforced glass and steel walls behind which federal agents wait. Inside those walls are men and women in tactical gear. Outside are citizens who believe their state's sovereignty is under siege. To many local leaders, these federal units are not partners, they are outsiders. Armed with heavy-duty riot equipment, thermal imaging systems, and broad federal mandates, they represent what critics see as Washington's unchecked reach. The assumption federal planners believed was simple: sustained pressure would break resistance. A projected arrest quota of 3,000 individuals would be fulfilled through relentless enforcement. But the storm was underestimated.
DHS maintains that the operation is about public safety. Officials argue that sanctuary cities like Minneapolis attract undocumented immigrants seeking refuge from law enforcement, allowing dangerous individuals to hide among law-abiding residents. Yet on the streets, that justification finds little acceptance. Federal agents believe their badges grant them authority. What they failed to recognize was the growing storm in the shadows. Their equipment is formidable: Lenco Bearcat armored vehicles capable of urban domination, acoustic hailing devices that can rupture eardrums, and 40mm launchers firing impact munitions with bone-crushing force. This is not symbolic power, it is designed intimidation. Inside the federal command structure, confidence borders on arrogance. Armor, weapons, mandates, the assumption that the population would eventually submit. But as dawn approaches, the dynamics shift. A new force enters the perimeter: the Minnesota National Guard, deployed under the authority of Governor Tim Walz. These are not anonymous federal operatives flown in from distant states. These are neighbors, teachers, mechanics, parents, citizen soldiers. They arrive without the blacked-out menace of federal tactical armor. Instead, they wear high-visibility neon vests layered over their OCP uniforms. Their presence alone changes the atmosphere. Commands echo through the frozen air. Get back. Please, get back. Not shouted in aggression, but pleaded with urgency. The guards' equipment is standard issue, but their mission is anything but routine. Most cameras miss it, but something unusual is unfolding. Nearly 5,000 National Guard troops move into a formation that subtly but effectively neutralizes the federal firing lines. Military analysts would later describe it as a textbook maneuver, not of violence, but of control. Federal agents remain hunkered behind night vision optics, preparing for confrontation. The Guard moves with calm precision. Instead of batons or riot shields, they unload crates from the backs of Humvees. Steam begins to rise into the frozen air. Industrial thermoses, coffee, hot chocolate, boxes of donuts. What looks like charity is in reality strategy. The smell of fresh coffee slices through the metallic cold. Protesters hesitate. Federal observers are stunned. The Guard is not preparing to strike, they're preparing to defuse. This is a psychological maneuver few in Washington anticipated.
Tension peaks. Protesters brace for impact that never comes. The Guard walks forward calmly, hands full, not of weapons, but warmth. This is the moment the trap snaps shut, not with force, but with humanity. On federal command frequencies, confusion spreads. Thermal monitors reveal something unprecedented. Agitation levels dropping, voices lowering, movements slowing. A crowd on the brink of eruption begins to settle. State-operated drones lift into the sky. Puma systems, equipped with advanced electro-optical and infrared gimbals, stream live feeds directly to the governor's office, bypassing federal encryption. Every federal position is visible, every movement recorded. Information dominance shifts. The federal perimeter, once impenetrable, becomes a cage of its own making. When pro-federal agitators attempt to breach the eastern flank, the National Guard responds without escalation. Massive Oshkosh transport vehicles roll into place, forming a physical barrier between opposing groups. No strikes, no gas, no flashbangs, just steel, discipline, and calm authority. Inside the federal building, panic replaces confidence. The planners had prepared for chaos, for riots, for bloodshed. What they face instead is a professional military force refusing to play by old rules. A riot launcher appears at a second-floor hatch. The tension becomes unbearable. A Guard commander steps forward into the line of fire. He raises his hand, a universal signal to halt. Behind him, 5,000 troops stand in absolute silence. The message is unmistakable. Minnesota will not be intimidated. The shot never comes. What unfolds is a lesson in modern conflict, not bullets versus bodies, but psychology versus escalation. By identifying emotional flashpoints and deploying sustenance, the Guard drains the energy required for violence. It is intelligence-led de-escalation, a 21st century strategy replacing 20th century riot control. This was never just about coffee or donuts. It was about occupying the space between authority and outrage, about denying escalation oxygen, about asserting state sovereignty without firing a single round. Federal tactics reliant on fear and force collapse under the weight of calm discipline and information control. The arrest quotas go unmet. The confrontation dissolves not in flames, but in silence. Minneapolis exhales. What happened here signals something larger, a shift in how power is challenged, how conflict is resolved. The era of brute enforcement meets a new reality, one where dominance comes not from fear, but from understanding the battlefield of the human mind. And on that frozen morning in Minnesota, the battlefield was won without a single shot fired.